Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our premiere episode of Penguin on HBO by Story Archives. I'm your host, Mario Busto, alongside
the other host, Zachary Newton. Welcome back.
We're back. We weren't supposed to do a show on the Penguin. It came out of left field. I saw this show for about a year. They've been promoting this thing for maybe not a year, I'm exaggerating, but at least several months. I've been seeing it pop up. And I always associate the Penguin with Danny DeVito, the old Penguin, same. Right? So I'm always thinking something wacky. But obviously I watched the Batman of Matt Reeves, just let's consider it the Matt Reeves Batman universe at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was a big fan of it. I was a huge fan of the movie, but I didn't really pay attention too much to the series they had developing. Maybe I liken it a little bit towards like Better Call Saul type of thing, where like I loved Breaking Bad. You know, I'm not going to necessarily put the Matt Reeves universe on Breaking Bad level yet, but I was like, how good can Better Call Saul actually be? And then you watch, season 1 and all the way through where it is now, and it's literally just as good as Breaking Bad. It is that freaking good. And that's kind of what happened here with Penguin. It has reshaped everything that I could have imagined this show is. We're 3 episodes in. You can tell it's a surprise because we didn't do an individual episode for 1 and 2, which we would have done had we known it was going to be this good. Yeah. And here we are. It's this crazy mix of like Sopranos meets Batman meets Bronx Tale meets whatever you want to call it. But this performance of the Penguin by Colin Farrell is solidifying him in my mind as one of the greatest actors in the world. And we've kind of known that for a while, but this just further is a reminder.
Yeah, I mean, he does an incredible job at it, honestly. It's hard to believe that it actually is Colin Farrell at times. Like, it's just like, if you didn't know, I don't think you'd ever like think like, oh, it's Colin Farrell. Yeah. But no, this is a really solid show. It's a great surprise. And I will say I've been scarred by some other, Batman universe like TV shows I've tried to get into in the past. Like I tried Gotham, but compared to this, Gotham is not good at all. But yeah, no, I love the show. I actually liked the Matt Reeves Batman, even
big time,
with all of the controversy that went on with it.
What controversy?
There's this whole big story that I read about like way back in the day when the movie first came out. That his script for his Batman was actually ripped off from somebody else that wrote it back in like I want to say the 80s. It may have been later.
Now they're gonna hate our podcast because we brought Reminder to it. Not that we know it's true or not. I'm not.
I don't know if it's true, but I mean, it was just a hot topic on the internet. So, but I loved it. I loved the grittiness of it, and I feel like it carried over very well here. Like it's not.
It's fantastic.
It's great, and I love kind of getting to expand on, some of the villains in a show. Like it's not really an angle that we get to see, too often. I mean, unless you're we don't get to see too often. But I'll end my my intro on this. I'm very happy that there's now another Penguin that I actually can respect and I like as a character. So.
100%. It's kind of perfect timing too. I mean, this one is not doing nearly as good, but Joker 2 just came out. So speaking of other things, I'm in the minority. We'll talk about Joker later, but this show's doing something that I haven't ever seen a TV show do. And it's a really unique thing. Usually you'll see this. You'll see the TV show lead to a movie, right? So we've done Peaky Blinders on this channel. If you didn't know this, we're probably one of the top like ranked Peaky Blinders podcasts in the world. It's kind of a niche show, but I have a feeling it's one of those shows that's going to pop off like randomly. And it already has because there's a cult following of it. But considering Cillian Murphy's like massive success right now after Oppenheimer and everything, I just feel like it's inevitable that show's going to go down as one of the all-timers. And but what I was trying to say is that like usually see a TV show, Entourage, Peaky Blinders, Breaking Bad, several other shows that are not coming to mind. Sex and the City, I guess, Friends, that they'll do a series and then they'll come back out of nowhere and do one movie, right?
Yeah.
But Penguin has taken the events of the Matt Reeves Batman, And this series picks up maybe a couple of days after the final events of that movie, where the Riddler blows up, sets off those bombs that we see in episode 3, which we see like pretty much blows up the dam and pretty much puts parts of Gotham underwater, right?
Yeah.
And so we're seeing this series pick up from a movie, which makes me wonder, when they made the movie, did they always know they were going to do a Penguin television series, or was this something after the fact where like, wait a minute, what if we do a series in the Penguin and we're going to pick up right after the events and we're going to show the Penguin's rise to running the city? Because, eventually he does, I think, rise up and become one of the top bosses in the city. And becomes one of the chief villains of Batman. So, I find that just incredibly interesting. And then fast forward 3 episodes and we just ended episode 3 and it's better than it's better than it should be. It's just ridiculous. But anyways,
it's really not what I would have expected from a Batman show, but I'm loving every moment about it. And I will say, when I was watching the first episode, I wrote down, I'm like, dude, this has to be the most seamless like transition from a movie to a TV show that I've ever seen. Like I loved how they tied everything, and like seeing the initial like 2-minute clip, that intro opening scene in episode 1 where we were like tying and everything. You're seeing the explosions like that. It's been years since I watched the movie, and it just brought that all right back to me. It was crazy. I was just like, oh, I remember that happening. It was a real Riddler. Okay. And I just knew exactly where we were at, and it was interesting, kind of seeing what was it, the explosions going off in that opening sequence, and then them talking about like all these other vigilantes. Just it brought me back to that like a arena that Batman was in. Towards the end of the movie.
I was going to mention, you said something great there. It reminded me of a detail in the show. I read this Twitter thread the other day that was talking about the difference between the Christopher Nolan Batman universe and the Matt Reeves Batman universe. And it was pretty much talking about how the Matt Reeves universe, and then we're going to break a record by saying Matt Reeves universe in this podcast at this point. But how he tries to root his Batman in reality, and in a hyper real way. He's trying to kind of explain everything in a way that makes sense in the real world, right? So in this reality, and I guess I don't remember this being such a prominent part in the Nolan Batman series, but in the Penguin, they're really rooting Gotham in the United States, like in the world, right? So they talk about California, how Graciela is going to move to California. So they've pretty much created Gotham as its own city existing within the world. Like Spider-Man's in New York City, but this exists within the U.S., so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Which is incredibly interesting. I mean, even the rendition of Batman, played by Robert Pattinson, is more hyper realistic. His armor. He's not impenetrable. He's tough, but he can't fight 30 people at once. So it's way more grounded in reality. Even when he's flying off a building, he has a parachute. Like there's things that are happening there like that. And it's cool to see this expand, because Gotham has this feel almost like it feels a little cyberpunky Gotham, right? It's like a mix in New York, but it also gives me the vibes of like when I played Cyberpunk 2077.
See, I got more of like a GTA 4 vibe.
Really?
Show. Really, really
pure chaos,
especially from episode 1. Kind of seeing you drive on, underneath the overpass, and just some of the locations, it really kind of felt like GTA to me. But I do like that it does feel like we have some better sense of where this mythical city actually lies. Like I've always thought that it was just a play off of like New York, but
so did I.
Yeah,
and it is in some ways.
Yeah, it's interesting to kind of hear other things that help tie this into like reality, I guess. Hearing California alone was what I thought was interesting. I was like, oh yeah, I know where that is, of course.
And there's elements to it, right? I mean, there's some wackiness, like his Maserati being purple. Like they do bring elements of the Penguin being this kind of gaudy guy, right? Who wants to stand out and make a mark on the world. But they explain, but think about it. They explain the way he walks like a penguin. by showing his foot. It's like I don't know.
Club
I'm sure we're gonna find a story. Yeah, we'll probably hear a story eventually of how his whether he was born like that or whether that became an issue later.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong though, because when Penguin was in his mother's house, where there was like photos all over the wall, which by the way is also another very interesting thing. It feels so
backstory
human. He doesn't seem like a super villain. It seems more just like a not regular villain, which is interesting. But I feel like in some of those pictures on the wall, if I recall, he was in them, but he did not look all fucked up like he does. Like,
no, he does. Yeah,
I don't know what happened.
And I think we'll get into it because he obviously has like a scar on his face now and everything. So obviously certain things took place that we're gonna maybe get a backstory on. But that's what I'm trying to say is that they root everything in reality. So that waddle he does is very much, based off of a deformity that he has or a handicap.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like you said, it's very rooted. And that's why I said it's kind of like a mix of Sopranos, because I would love to interview Colin Farrell and ask him like, all right, so who did you take inspiration from this role? Because it feels so much like you haven't watched Sopranos yet, but
I haven't, but I get the vibe just from watching like snippets.
You see James Gandolfini play Tony Soprano in that. I mean, Penguin is essentially Tony Soprano in this series. He has obviously his own unique bits to him, but they kind of tick in the same way. They got this mentally ill mother, right? Who's very much the devouring mother, right? In a sense, if you ever heard a lecture on like Jordan Peterson talk about that, how that's like a theme in myths and stuff like that. Oh, you got like the devouring mother of the Penguin here, who very much belittles him, right? She humiliates him, says, I didn't raise no nobody. I didn't raise no, what does she call him?
A pussy boy.
Yeah, I didn't raise no pussy boy. So she really knows how to get under his skin to a point where he lets it out on everybody, where we open up the series with him shooting the new crime boss. We nearly see him kill Johnny Vitti in episode 3. So there's ways to get under his skin where he loses his cool completely. And although he has like a vision for trying to take over, he will pretty much blow up his own plans if somebody gets under his skin just the right way. But then there's another side of him that seems to just love the pure chaos of it all, because at the very end, he has found out essentially that he was playing both sides, right?
Yeah.
Because the chick shows up who's related to, what's the name of the guy in prison?
Sal.
Maroney? What's the name? Okay. And she pulls up and it pretty much says, you're not going to play us. So now that tells Sophia that this guy was playing both sides here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he leaves Sophia behind, because now she knows that he was behind her brother's death. At least that's what I'm going to assume is taking place here, right? So, and then he gets in the car and tells Vic, "Oh, we really stepped in it now, Vic. Oh, we did it now."
Poor kid's just like, I'm gonna let my girl go and
worst decision he ever made in his life.
Help me out. Yeah, I know. He had a way out. I was actually surprised that
he didn't leave.
Oz was gonna let him out. He was gonna let him leave.
Well,
after everything that he's seen, like I totally was thinking the same way Vic was thinking. Like, dude, there's no way out. Like,
well, that's part of the charm of the show, right? That's part of the charm of the show is that they're trying to get you to like Oz. And so when you see Oz, you see a guy who's kind of alone, who sees maybe this guy Vic is kind of maybe somebody he can take under his wing, maybe the son he never had type of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he has that moment where it's very emotional. He says, "Oh, you think like when you see me, all you feel is a gun to your head? You think I'm holding you hostage? You know, all that kind of thing." And I honestly think, and if you're in the audience, feel free to roast me or like go against with a counter opinion. I honestly think he was being heartfelt there to Vic. I think part of him is trying to justify his lifestyle, right? Trying to justify what he does and trying to sell that lifestyle to this kid, right? But he doesn't want to force it. And so I thought the parallels were pretty great in this scene, because what happens a few moments before is exactly what he does to Vic in the bathroom, which is Sophia leaves the triad negotiation and he says, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" He says, they already saw what we have. They already saw what we're selling. They know what we can offer. It's up to them at this point. And what does he do to Vic? He says, "You've seen the life. You know what you want. Do you want more for yourself? You want more?" And then he plays to his weakness. He says, "You want more than your father." You know? This is essentially Bronx Tale if Robert De Niro's character in Bronx Tale was dead. which if you haven't seen that movie, it's about, and I mentioned this example like in the last episode I did of Pachinko, which if you want to catch that series, you can. It's about a kid who's pretty much, he has a dad who's a working class guy, who's a bus driver, good man, right? And then he has this guy on the block, played by Chaz Palminteri, who's a local kind of gang boss. So he runs the street. He's badass to like a kid of that age in this era of New York. And so this kid has this kind of dichotomy between like, which man does he want to be? Does he want to be like his father? Does he want to be like this gang boss who also doesn't have a son? So this is sort of like Bronx Tale if De Niro was dead and, you know, Palminteri was kind of raising the kid by himself. But Vic does make his choice by himself, which I think Oz is trying to make him respect himself, right? Yeah. Even if it's completely misguided in certain areas, because Oz is a completely effed up individual.
He's a horrible role model.
Exactly. But there are some bits that, like, this is why you kind of like Oz a little bit, which is, for example, when he's stuttering, one of the best things about Victor's character is the stutter that they decided to give him, at least in my opinion. And when he's ordering the steak frites at the restaurant and Oz interrupts the waiter and says, "Hey, don't do that." Yeah. You see, the man's he's talking here, you know, but that's good, you know, not to do it in that way, but in a way that is good advice, like to own it and like take up space. I think that is actually good advice. Where it's messed up advice is when he starts talking about like how his father and the world's effed up and you can't rise up and there is no right and wrong, like that nihilistic worldview. There just is, you know, all of that is completely, you know, crap. But in terms of some of the other things, like look yourself in the face and tell yourself what the real reason is. I'm not holding you hostage. You want this, which I believe that is the truth because he chooses to come back.
Yeah, I really don't. I don't disagree with anything you're saying. You know, the scene in the bathroom I did feel was very heartfelt. He being Oz, almost appeared hurt when he realized Vic felt like he was, you know, I guess being held hostage, which was interesting. Didn't quite expect it, honestly. But you know, back to the restaurant scene that you were talking about. Yeah, it's interesting because I always have this same thought about like a lot of like the mafia movies and shows that I've watched occasionally, where you know it's like there's like this culture of like respect and mannerism that is just like so evident in those shows and those movies. But yeah, like it's not necessarily executed in the best way or by the best means.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's you know, you like it and you hate it at the same time.
And like Oz is a conniving bastard, right? You know, he's at the restaurant.
He's a weasel.
You think it's kind of to reward Vic, right? To go to a nice restaurant or something like that. But what is he really there for? He's there to blackmail Tina, who is Luca's wife, and to get her essentially to get Vidi to do him the favor for the tryouts, right? Yeah. So I'm very curious to see how this partnership goes with Sophia because I think the whole audience is in the dark about her past, what the hell she did. And in this episode, they want you to believe that Oz betrayed her in some way. But from my understanding is she was literally a serial killer and they put her in prison for being a serial killer.
Yeah, but I mean, a serial killer daughter of like a gang lord. I mean,
yeah, but she wasn't killing like gang members. She was killing like freaking innocent women. At least that's what they say in the show, right? They called her the Hangman or something like that. The Hangman.
Yeah, the Hangman is what they called her. I don't quite know what all she did, to be honest. I did get the sense that it was a bunch of like women that she had killed. But I don't know. I mean, it seemed sincere.
Well, it was in the news.
It was one of those rare moments where, you know, Oz actually does seem sincere, where he's talking about basically betraying her. So I feel like there's truth to that. I don't understand what it was that was so bad that she did that her father had her put in Arkham.
The radio thing that pops up over the radio, she killed like 11 women. I mean, that's pretty bad, bro. That's
yeah. All right, it's bad. It's bad, but I mean, if your father's like the freaking like
but he's got his
king.
You literally
come on, like
but you literally just said you're gonna get destroyed in the comments. You just said that these mafia shows that you watch have an order to them. That's kind of like the no. You don't ever see like in these mafia shows for the most part them just killing innocent people, like killing innocent women.
It's true. That's it. That is a very good point.
And by the way, this is very Italian inspired, even the way Colin Farrell talks and the Falcones and the Maronis.
Mm-hmm.
And then he even says like in this episode they're all related. Both of them on the bottom of the boot. That
We're also talking about trips to Italy too.
Exactly. So this is very much inspired by the Italian mob way of doing things. So they they have their limits. They have their kind of drawing their line. And if she actually did that, which is the kind of thing I'm a little confused on, because she says essentially the way she talks in this episode is as if she didn't do it. And so she was framed for it. That's what it sounded like to me, but I could be wrong. She could have like some split personality type of thing where maybe that's her alter ego, right?
Yeah. Who knows how much of her now is really still her after being in Arkham for what was it, like 10 years?
Yeah.
But I did pick up on that as well. She's like, listen to what they're calling me, the Hangman. I'm not the Hangman.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to read it. Still don't quite know what. I mean, we know, I guess, what she did. Killed 11 people, according to the news. But yeah, I feel like we're bound to get a little bit more of a backstory there at some point. Like this episode 3 at least, was really focused on Victor. We got a little bit of his backstory and seeing how his family was really just wiped away really quick. And in a scene that kind of reminded me of like the Miles Morales Spider-Man movie, but yeah.
This was very much the Victor episode. I mean, we get his tragic backstory. We see the girl Graciela, who he makes a really dumb decision in inviting her to Oz's apartment, but we can talk about that in a little bit.
God, I wrote that down too. I was like, why did he bring her here?
Well, the whole time I'm thinking, like, if Oz comes back and sees her, that's another person at risk. And then if this freaking woman killing Hangman sees her, then it's like, oh, great, another target for her. So I am very interested to see what happens with Vic. But this episode very much dives into the new drug that they're dropping called Bliss, which is apparently this psychoactive drug that Sophia was taking in Arkham, and that essentially helps make people more submissive or controlling, right? Kind of reminds you of, I think there was a Batman in the Nolan universe where they pretty much drugged the entire city.
The Scarecrow. Yeah, Scarecrow. Played by Cillian Murphy. It was like drugging the whole city and making them all hallucinate, tripping balls, man.
So that's essentially what they're going to be running now. And now the triads are in. But the question now is what happens with Oz? Because put it this way, if Vic would have left with this girl, he would have been completely free. Completely, because Oz would have been dead. Right there, he would have been dead.
Very true.
So Vic came back and just pretty much opened up a whole can of worms for himself.
Well, I've got to say, Oz might not be dead. I mean, look at, this is episode 3. How many times has he been in a situation where you're like, how are you going to get out of this one? Well, he always finds a way out. Always. It's been like 4 or 5 times.
Well, if anybody should have died in that situation, it would be Sophia, right? Because they could eliminate her right there.
Mm-hmm.
There's really nobody else. There's nobody else really to contend with at the moment. They can actually claim another Falcone, take more of the street. Oz can hand them the drug deal, and pretty much say, "Oh, only reason I did this was because I was put in a bind because your guy got captured. So it's the only reason I did this."
Mm-hmm.
At some point, somebody has to cap Oz, but because he's just too much.
The show is named The Penguin, so I don't know if that's going to happen.
The problem is that his character is how he looks. He is as absolutely off-putting to look at as his character is, right? So everything that they say about him is pretty much true. He betrays everybody. You can't trust the guy. There's a reason Carmine Falcone didn't trust him to begin with. In the movie, I think, actually, let me look this up real quick.
Go for it. While you look it up, one of the questions I had was, is Sophia still alive? I mean, I know he kind of just left her behind. I don't think she's dead. I don't know if you feel a different way, but I feel like it would just be too easy. Like he's gonna, be able to.
Okay.
moving to power too quickly.
Okay,
What?
no. In the movie, the Riddler shoots Falcone. I thought it was Penguin, but it was not Penguin who shoots him. So, yeah. What did you just mention right now?
I was asking if you think Sophia is alive or dead.
There's no way she's dead. I can't imagine that.
That was my reaction too.
Yeah, I just don't understand how many people were with guns there were. I mean, Vic goes in there and runs somebody over, or probably chops her body in half with how fast he hit him. I just don't know how many people are left. I just don't know. I don't feel like Oz needed to necessarily run away in that scenario. It just would have been another layer. He still has the dirt on Johnny Vitti, right?
Yeah.
That's like the ace in his pocket, pretty much, is that thing. It's debatable how. So there's a problem here with Oz, is that he wants to be the one in charge. Every time he's reminded that he's just the driver, he's just this guy. He's not a made man. He's not even a capo or whatever. It's just like nails on a chalkboard for him. Like he just gets reminded by his mother, probably, who says, "I ain't raised no pussy boy." Like there's probably ringing in his head the whole time. So at some point, we know he's betraying everybody. And in fact, I think we're heading to like a horrible place with Victor. I think Victor is going to get killed at some point.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I don't think he's going to be able to stick around, very long. I do actually find the world building in this pretty interesting.
The what?
And it's incredible how over the last 3 episodes, like I feel like the Penguin is made to feel just smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And then we've got the introduction of the triads. You got the Falcones, the Maronis. Like there's so much. Like, I'm sure there's probably going to be some other faction at some point that we're going to be introduced to. But yeah, it's interesting to see this grow, and it just seems like he's just keeps putting himself in a bigger mess every time. Like every decision he makes to get out of something, it's there's gonna be a reckoning at some point, and he's just making it worse every day.
To that point, I mean, we get sort of some breadcrumbs about a new election occurring in this episode. Bella Real, I wrote down the name. We don't really see much of her. All we find out is that she's running for mayor, and then we find out that the other mayor was assassinated, right? So there's a lot. Let's kind of do like an account of where Oz is here. He killed Alberto Falcone because he laughed at him. He struck up a deal with Sophia now, and he's running this new drug that's going to take over the market. He's essentially made an alliance with the Triads. He made a deal with the Maronis to try to pin, or the Marones, however he pronounces it, to pin the murder of Alberto on them. But now that's been found out that he was playing both sides, because Sophia is really smart, so I'm assuming she caught on to that. And so now both sides know he's playing both sides. She might be dead or alive. We don't know yet. Johnny Vitti is in a bind because now they have information to use against him with Luca. So he's pretty much completely controlled, I would say, if I had to guess. And Oz is on the run now. So that's pretty much where this episode leaves us. He's without the drug trade. He's probably without his clubs. And now he needs to strike up another alliance with somebody to either get back in the good graces with the Falcones or to get in the good graces with the Maroons. Who knows? Yeah, or maybe he needs to go meet up with Batman.
Yeah, I was gonna say we haven't really seen anybody else in the universe. I mean, there's still the Riddler somewhere.
It's funny because we haven't heard anything about Batman in the news in the show, and I think that's on purpose. They don't want this to be so focused on Batman. And also, whereas in the Nolan universe, Batman literally felt like he was everywhere all at once, right?
Yeah.
In the Reeves universe, that opening intro to his movie, where it's the question of whether he's in the darkness. It's that question of when you're doing bad, when you're doing something illegal, that shadow in the corner, if he's there. You see him on the subway with a hoodie on, wearing a hat. He's not just kind of coming in out of nowhere. He's literally integrated in there. So it's more about the mystery of where he could be at any moment and you have no idea. I do wonder if we get any sort of hint of Batman, if he plays any role in the situation, or if he stands to gain here because all these gangs are pretty much fighting each other.
they're fighting each other, but I feel like innocents end up in the crosshairs a lot of the times. I mean, if not, at gunpoint, probably by consuming a lot of these wild drugs. I honestly hope. I think I'll feel this way, later on in the season as well. But I kind of hope that we don't get Batman in this, because I feel like that'll just be
too Batman-y.
But not too Batman-y. It just feel like a cop out. Like I feel like it would just be like this random character that is in the universe that just swoops in and saves a day and has nothing to do with the show in the episode. Like
I don't want more Batman. I don't want more Batman, but I would like to hear occasionally on the radio, the masked Batman was seen supposedly at Crown Heights. You know what I mean? Like just random things like that.
Yeah, like little hints here and there.
Or
I like that.
News about what Bruce Wayne is doing in the city. Things like that. Like, oh, Bruce Wayne is helping in the flooding over at in the Crown Heights, area.
Yeah.
It's been devastated since the Riddler, and he's taken it upon himself to give support or whatever.
Yeah, I'd be cool with that. That's totally fine. I'd also love to hear a little more about what else is going on with some of the other, you big villains. And it makes me wonder, like, could we see this universe explode and we get like
multiple
spin-offs show, the Riddler, the Joker?
I wouldn't tune into a Riddler show because I thought his character was so I put him in the same category as like the Joker in Todd Phillips' Joker, which is the second one is bombing right now. I don't know if you've heard, but
I have heard. I have no idea if it's true. I heard it was intentional because they didn't like Warner Brothers made it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I heard it was because they didn't like the people that the first one resonated with, so they intentionally.
Oh, so you heard that theory? You heard that conspiracy?
I heard that theory, but I haven't looked into it. I don't even think I've seen the trailer for the Joker 2.
No, I heard the same thing, and I got to be honest with you. When I watched the first one, I'm in the minority. I couldn't stand that movie. I couldn't stand it. Fan. I thought it was glorifying like this incel guy, and it was just. Too many people I was talking to after that movie were like, "Oh, it was amazing," and I was thinking to myself,
"You're starting to question every friendship."
Well, I'm thinking to myself, really. So there's certain things a character can do, and I think it's like innate, and I don't know how to explain this. I don't have a story definition. I'm sure there's some sort of term in storytelling that can talk about the feeling I'm talking about, but it's this betrayal of who you think this character is. So, for example. We like Oz. We see his warts and all. He's a horrible person, but we think that there is some element of good in him so far in the series, right?
Yeah.
But if in the finale, he shoots Victor in the face and kills Victor. After taking over the city, he has no need to do it, but he still kills him, right? At that point, you hate Oz because now he's done something that you think is not in line with what he's shown you so far.
Mm-hmm.
Same with any other character. In the Harry Potter series, in the 7th book or the 6th book, you start to hear rumors about what Dumbledore's done, like the shady stuff he's done, if he's guilty of what he's been guilty of, running experiments or all these different things, leading Harry pretty much like, I don't want to say, I guess it's safe to say spoilers on Harry Potter at this point, but essentially using Harry to get rid of Voldemort and like, and pushing him that way his entire life, that type of thing. And you start to see this beloved character that you think was like this good intentioned person. You're like, oh, wait a minute. Is this true? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that the Joker character, when he like shoots the talk show host in the face, there's a moment there where you're like, all right, at this point, he's supposed to be unlikable. Yes, he's an empathetic character. He's had a horrible life, but he stabbed the guy in his apartment. Like it was horrible things in that movie. And I was thinking to myself, like, why do so many people love this version of the Joker? I'm like, what? Even his laugh is it's nothing clever. It's like just a sad clown, right? It's not like anything like that. And I know the spoilers of the second movie, and I do wonder if I really don't think that conspiracy is true about that they cared that it resonated with people, but I think Todd Phillips has given up on the Joker universe because he's not doing a third one. And I don't want to say any spoilers because the movie just came out, but I'll leave it at that. It's not doing well. It's pretty much a musical. And I don't know enough about it to make an assessment. Maybe I watched the second one and I like it more than the first. But the first one, I don't know. I just really, maybe it's so impossible to top the Heath Ledger Joker that everybody's.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a big fan of the Barry Keoghan little snippet of his Joker that we saw at the end of the Batman, right? Because you see that there's like a clip, I think, of him as the Joker. And he's very terrifying. Like it's this demented version of the Joker. Once again, it's not this brilliant, clever Heath Ledger version of the Joker. It's this monstrous looking person, you know? And that's probably going to be who we get in this rendition of it.
It could be. I think a lot of the villains in Batman are monstrous looking. I mean, you've got Bane, you've got Freeze. I'm going back to some other Batman movies. Obviously, not all in the Matt Reeves universe right now, but they all look pretty bad. But yeah, I agree with you on the first Joker. Wasn't a big fan of it. It was a really depressing movie to watch too. Honestly, it was just like very slow.
It was very depressing. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was the whole time. It was just a consistent down note. That was one of my biggest things. It's like you need something, and it was just a down. You know. Anyways, there was more. I'm blanking on some of the memories of it, but I remember I watched that movie and then I went on a shoot the next day. And everybody there was like, "Oh, Joker was amazing." I'm like, "What was amazing about it?" Did Arthur Fleck really resonate with you? Even though he'd laugh when he was doing stand-up comedy, go. He was great though. I will say Joaquin Phoenix was terrific. I will say that for sure. All right. I think we just about covered everything in episode 3. We pretty much talked about episodes 1 and 2 a little bit. Shall we get into some categories?
Yeah, let's get into a few categories. I'm going to start this one out with favorite character of the episode.
Victor, for sure.
Yeah, you got to give it to him. This is his episode. I don't know how many episodes of his we're actually going to get.
Yeah.
How about favorite scene?
Bro, I got to say the most well done scene was when Victor's tripping out on the dance floor, which, by the way, I knew him and that girl Roxy had chemistry from the beginning. She's always kind of like looking at him a certain way.
Yeah.
That scene made me like short of breath watching that sequence. When the explosions are happening, he's walking towards it, and then even the imagery of the people in the background, it looks like bodies floating in water. I mean, it's a pretty horrifying. Like it's a lot going on. The editing in that scene was spectacular. The sound design, like the shots of the waves, then cutting back to his family, the water rushing into their apartment, Graciela being there like on the dance floor, like everything was super well done. So that scene was to me the best scene in the episode, but there's others that can compete with it for sure.
Yeah, no, it was a really good scene. Like seeing him get like PTSD from the whole situation, from the noise and everything. It's just like I guess the claustrophobia of everything around him.
I thought he accidentally took the drug.
Really well. After watching it for about 30 seconds, I kind of thought so too. Like, did I don't know, something?
I thought he I thought maybe he tongue kissed Roxy or something like that, and like got some of the drug.
I wasn't quite sure, but no, that one was done really well. I liked I actually liked the scene where Vic and Oz were at the restaurant. I kind of liked that.
Great scene. Yeah, I love that.
That dialogue was solid. Speaking of dialogue, what was your favorite line?
I feel like everything Oz says is something you could put up on a wall somewhere. Like just
mine is one of his lines.
I can't pinpoint something specific, but I did like when he said, "You got to take up space. You got to take up space." My favorite moment of the episode is when he interrupts the waiter and is like, "Let him speak." You know?
Yeah, I'm speaking here.
Yeah.
I liked his line where he was talking to Vic. Oz was talking to Vic, and he's like, "Oh, you still think there's good and bad, there's right and wrong?"
That was a great line. Yeah.
There's just this. I was like,
"There's no right or wrong. There just is."
Yeah. So that was solid.
That's his worldview, by the way. That's like that moment where we see
up everything. Yeah.
Because he even says that to Sophia right after. He says, "I don't regret it. I got this club. I got these drops. You may look down on it, but I got something. I got a better life." He does a good thing there.
Yeah. So. And then one last question I've got, and this could apply to any episode 1, 2, or 3. Is there anything that you've seen that you would nitpick, or something maybe you're disappointed in? Could be quality, story, character, whoever, whatever.
I feel like I've seen the guy who plays Johnny Vitti in way too many shows playing the exact same role in every show he's in. He plays Doug Stamper in House of Cards. I've seen him in this role so many times, and he's a great actor. I just feel like he's always in this particular role. Huh. And I would like to see him do something else because I do think he's a great actor. I also think that the guy who plays the psychiatrist of Sophia that we see in episode 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I've seen him in a million things. And I feel like he's always somewhat in that same wavelength. And I would like to see, I think they're good actors. I just feel like they've been typecast. And that one is less typecast because I would have never imagined him in the role of a psychiatrist. So maybe I'm contradicting myself there. But the Johnny Vitti role, I feel like I always see him in this type of straight-laced, never the top dog, always like the guy second in command to the top dog. Mm-hmm. You know, that kind of role.
Yeah.
So that's not really a nitpick because I'm a fan of him. I just think that I always see him in that role. Similar to like Paul Giamatti. I see him in a lot of things. But recently, I saw Paul Giamatti in a role that I thought was terrific, which was I'm blanking on the name of the movie, but it's The Leftovers. I think it's called The Leftovers. If you can look it up. The Holdovers.
That movie was incredible.
Good movie, huh? Good movie. Yeah. I thought that was a great role for him. Very much a Paul Giamatti role, but in a different way. Like he brought a different, element to it. Whereas when you see him in the movie about NWA, I think it's called. What is that movie called? Straight Outta Compton. What's the name of that movie?
Straight Outta Compton. Yep.
And he plays the music producer. I'm like, oh no, don't do this role. Don't do this one. So there's some things like that, but that's just me looking at it from a fan's perspective of like what I would like to see. Like Colin Farrell. Colin Farrell used to be the freaking I would still consider him like a sex icon in the role of roles. He was in SWAT. He was in a bunch of things. Some movie called Phone Booth that he's like being sniped at the whole time. Like he was like in that sort of category with like the leading men in Hollywood. And then he does movies that subvert that completely, like In Bruges or Banshees of Inisherin. Yeah. And then this, where he's almost unrecognizable, right? So he is stretching like every, faculty he has in these characters. And that's why I think like there's no cop out. If an actor like this just legitimizes where TV is at this point. Where when you see guys like this in a show, or Gary Oldman in Slow Horses, or and that's your show. I've watched maybe 2 episodes, but Gary Oldman is one of the greatest. It's just a new era, bro. So I would love to see more of these movies leading to TV shows to expand their universe, because I've always been I started as a guy who wanted to make films, right? And now my thing is TV. Like I just think there's so much more of a possibility for expanding character arcs and telling stories through television than through a movie. And I think there's a place for film. Obviously, I love film, but like the Harry Potter series coming out, I've always said since I read those books that this would be better as a 10 episode season for each one.
You can go so much deeper on the storytelling. I mean, if this were just a Batman movie that focused around Penguin, like you wouldn't get any of this backstory. You'd probably pick up with Penguin in the middle of a job. And then he just gets defeated or something like that. So I do like the TV series, and I'm growing to like them more and more, just because it's like, man, you can get so into it, and it's crazy to see how, like, I mean, you can have a spinoff here, a spinoff there, and I feel like I would enjoy that more than a lot of like movie massive budget like productions just creating a spinoff, because then it doesn't feel right. Like I'm not a big fan of prequel movies.
Peaky Blinders is about to have a movie that they just went into production for.
Yeah.
And I'm bummed, because I would much prefer one more season of Peaky Blinders, or 2 more seasons of Peaky Blinders, than one movie, because I feel like I know what's going to happen in the movie, but then again, Cillian Murphy doesn't really miss.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, maybe we'll get lucky and there'll be like a part 1 and a part 2 of the movie at least.
I think it is going to be a part 1 and part 2. If I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong. I mean, it's leading to World War II, so it has to be a lot. All right.
Yeah. The only thing I was honestly going to nitpick out of the show was some of the driving scenes in the first Maserati episode. It was just so like it did not look good.
Or how about like that the Maserati can just park wherever the hell it wants? There's always like a spot where it can pull up. Yeah.
Yeah. Not, I mean, I couldn't even do that in like Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
Let alone a fake New York City after it's been blown to smithereens and flooded.
Yeah.
Well,
Totally.
that's all the categories I've
You know,
got.
what I was just thinking?
No.
We were talking about AI in our Silo season 1 recap, which if you want to go listen to that, this series is leading straight into our coverage of Silo in November. I was just thinking about how AI, a lot of the Batman scenes were done on LED wall. It wasn't done green screen. It was LED. But then I saw that clip, and I sent it to you the other day of Tom Hanks just riding the horse in the parking lot, and just the whole Western town around him. They literally built like one facade and had maybe 20 actors there, and you had a whole town populated. I wonder if how good that animation looks, and the very little need to even put up green screen or blue screen all around. If the LED, like the new movement for these guys to buy these LED studios and to have these massive LED wall studios, if that's going to get outdated ridiculously quickly too. Because if you can just spin these environments up in what were you using the other day? Blender?
Yeah, Blender.
Anyways, it's just a thought. But anyway, let's wrap this up.
It could be. Well, any closing plugs before we close this out?
Yes, as always, thank you all for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like it, review it, leave us some comments. You can comment on Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, wherever your heart desires, Twitter or X as it is now known. This show, as always, is sponsored by both of our companies. My own is a full service video production company where we do all sorts of production for whatever your needs are. We also offer video editing services for anything you may need. So you can visit 1992films.com to learn about that. And then Zach, if you want to plug your own.
Yeah, so mine is a full service digital design company. Really, we cover everything from UX, UI design, research through to development. So if you want to chat about anything there, just reach out at zacharyrnewton.com and we can hop on a call.
Likewise. All right. Perfect. You have anything else to say? I feel like I said everything.
I do. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Story Archives. You can find this podcast anywhere you find podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube at SoapBox Podcast Network. And if you want to check out all of our social channels, visit our website at soapbox.house. You can find links to all of them there, as well as a link to contact us and send us an email.
Perfect. We'll see you next Sunday for the next episode of Penguin. Until then, have a great week.
Peace.